Happy holidays. Most investors are going to spend their Christmas morning staring at the same tired blue chip stocks. And they're wondering why their portfolio feels like it's in the dot-com bubble, right? And they're like, what's going on? But while we're actually going to not wait for a miracle here, we're going to get into some of the companies that we gave a list of in quantum computing last year. And since then, the average return of those picks has been 578%. So if you caught our shorts as well, you might have had a higher return than that. But I'm not here to hype you up on any stocks. I'm actually here to show you the data. And I know your time is valuable, so I'm not going to wait another second. So here is my current top 5 quantum era stocks we're watching. Number 1 is going to be the CCCX stock we're going to take a look at. Rigetti, IonQ, QBTS, and then kind of the big companies, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA. That's going to take number 5, Amazon. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to break down why these are the top 5 and are the only ones that matter to me that I'm focusing on, and also how we're using them in the Prophecy app. So speaking of the Prophecy app, we recently just finalized our quantum integration. So we've added specific analysis modules for Rigetti and IonQ, so you can stop guessing, start calculating after you get projections from the top companies in the world. We're trying to get this ahead for 2026. You get 1 year of full access to all the pro models, including this quantum, Grok, Gemini, and Claude. And there's a $300 off holiday discount in the link below. And that's just for this holiday season. So it's not so much for the future. It's for people that are looking to take action right now. Looking at the facts here, let's jump into why these are the top 5. So number 1, you got CCCX. Now this company is extremely high risk. That's why I have it at number 1. It's extremely potentially high growth, or potentially could be detrimental for a portfolio. And personally, I don't hold any of it. I do hold positions over in Rigetti, in IonQ, in QBTS, and we have been holding positions there. As you can see, even on the right there, we got some positions on Rigetti currently that are in shorter to medium term trades that are up over 100%. So I can say with confidence that I won't be buying this number 1 stock, CCCX, but there's a reason why it's been interesting. You see, I was just talking with our developer here at Prophecy app. His name's Ryan. He's my co-founder, and we work together quite often. And we're talking about quantum computing companies. And he brought up this company called CCCX, which is a company that is now a part of a potential SPAC deal that is going to put another quantum company on the map in the market. And potentially very soon we could see them available to invest in trade. You can see here there's a deal that's potentially going through, and the quantum company is called Infleqtion. Okay, Infleqtion. Now, I don't recall at the quantum conferences that we went to this last year, whether it was CES or the D-Wave Qubits conference or the one in Albuquerque, New Mexico we went to, where we saw most of all of these companies, we didn't see Infleqtion, but I don't fully remember. And so I was a little bit hesitant because first impressions were, if this SPAC deal goes through here, then you have the Churchill Capital Group X or Corp X has a negative net income. They don't look good. They have more liabilities than assets. You can see that. So that's like red flags. It doesn't look too good. But oftentimes, that's where SPAC deals originate. They originate from a company that's not doing so hot. Okay. And then you have a deal that happens in order to proposed business combination with another company, and then you could see that they put together their companies and they essentially formulate a deal for them to combine. Okay, so if that's the case, initially the company doesn't look so hot. The CCCX, like financials, looks pretty bad, but then you have the actual company they would be kind of getting into. And why would a company do this? A couple of reasons. The investors, or because they're just trying to get public, let's say, quicker than having to go through a lot of processes. So that's what the market's watching. Now with CCCX or Infleqtion, I wanted to know if it was a legit quantum company, because as I mentioned, I didn't see them at the conferences. So I went into some research, and it just so happens that I had this article bookmarked because I've been following it, which is NVIDIA introducing the NVQLink, which is connecting quantum and GPU computing, meaning like, the biggest companies in the world, NVIDIA and AMD, or just data centers like that run AI, the computers that are in those big data centers. In a perfect world, you have integration with the new quantum computers seamlessly into the data centers and into all of this new compute demand that's for AI. And that, if you have data centers integrated with quantum, in theory, quantum would become more prominent, and then quantum computing technology could potentially be a main driver of the AI boom. So for that reason, you look at the article here that NVIDIA introduced with a integration for GPU computing for quantum companies, 17 quantum builders. And you can see that they have a diagram here. It shows like the server, all the computers, with the quantum computer looks like a Rigetti quantum computer on the left. That computer right here on the left looks like the Rigetti quantum computer. I could probably pull it up. Let's see. The Rigetti quantum computer looks like this. See that? That's how it looks. And on this image from the NVQLink, looks like a Rigetti quantum computer there on the left. And so one of the companies that was mentioned in the article is Infleqtion. Infleqtion. Let's see. So you have Dirac, you have Pascal, you have Quantinuum, quantum circuits, quantum machines, quantum motion, Q-era, and then you got Rigetti in the list, as well as IonQ. Where is IonQ? I don't see. Oh, there they are. IonQ. And then there you are. Just to the left, you have Infleqtion. So they are one of the companies that's going to be integrating with NVIDIA. And this is actually really important because NVIDIA has this program that's called the Q2Q. And you'll notice that one of the catalysts for all 5 of these stocks is the fact that they have the partnerships with the larger companies. That's why I said the number 5 isn't a pure play. It's the Microsoft, the NVIDIA, the Google, the Amazons, because a big catalyst for these smaller quantum computing companies is that they're working with the larger companies. And so here, look at this diagram. You got the Q2Q, so libraries, programming models, compilers. This is directly from NVIDIA. You have the AI supercomputing on the left, integrated with the quantum computing on the right. You can see IonQ, Infleqtion, AWS, Quantinuum, IQM, and then the other approaches are simulation of quantum systems. That's what we're doing over at the Prophecy app. So when I was just showing you that we can actually also use this for our analysis, that we were integrating quantum computing is essentially what we do is let's search up a stock, for example, our next one, which will be Rigetti. Okay, I'm going to search up Rigetti. And then on the right here, you can see we're integrating the quantum. That's a quantum backend. And the way that we do that is using technologies similar to what you see here, which is quantum simulations, quantum systems, write once, run everywhere. So QPU agnostic and integrates with 75% of publicly available QPUs, and use familiar tools. So use Python or C#, C++ to describe your algorithm in a high-level language, which gives the ability for potentially like the development of helping AI code some of the tools that you're going to be building on the quantum networks. And so this is really powerful because, as you can see, quantum volume speed up, GPU speed up just with CPUs, you can see it's at 1x. But when you have the GPU 8x B200 node, okay, here, you look at the combination, multiple GPUs can scale the performance of quantum algorithm simulations by more than 300x. So the important thing to note, and this is kind of going to be a recurring theme, is that when you're looking at Infleqtion, for example, and why we like this company potentially going public, is because their integration with quantum is pretty heavy. Now, when it comes to Infleqtion's site and what they do, you can see they have the NVIDIA badge over there, NVIDIA GTC, and you can see some of their focuses are in government contracts. I believe they're working with, if it's not the Department of Defense, it's some other government agencies. They're working with commercial software, sensors, corporations, institutions. Here we are. Their customers and collaborators include U.S. Air Force and many others. And L3 Harris is a big one. You got DARPA, NASA, U.S. Army, NVIDIA, and the list goes on. And so the reason that this is potentially a very well organized and well structured foundation for them to potentially see this SPAC deal of going public through the form of combining with this previously existing stock, CCCX, is that very quickly they're going public. They're very quickly, if this goes through, would see the balance sheet change, because right now this company has zero revenue. We would anticipate that Infleqtion has much more revenue. And when you look at the newsroom and you look at their articles from a press release perspective, again, directly from the source, this isn't hype articles or anything like that. We're looking directly to the source. You can see that there are some contracts that they've recently signed that are progressing their balance sheet and progressing their revenue projections, which would be greater than zero. And that's where currently this company is that they would have this SPAC deal with. So again, still up in the air. It's not 100%. In fact, I don't know that it's been fully verified even over on their site. You can see on their site, I don't even see the mention directly from the company around this deal. However, you do see them mentioning the NVQLink, NVIDIA. And so right now, it's only up in the air here that there are some documents that's been proposed that they may be merging with this company. Okay, so, well, basically it hasn't happened yet, and so that's why it's risky. In fact, it could also very quickly, let's say that this deal falls apart, then this company could actually go bankrupt. Because why would they do it? It's because they're a little bit distressed. You can even see that their total assets right now are lower than their total liabilities, which means they could potentially go bankrupt if they are obligated to pay their debts all at once. And so there's a lot of risk touching it. That's why I said, again, high risk, but you can kind of see previous highs around $25 a share for the company and up to $27 up there. Now, if they were going to, let's say, have this go through and then it formulates to match the values of Infleqtion, the current financials are slightly more skewed and difficult to get a full picture of. I mean, you can see their revenue 2024. They have some insights, maybe some press releases they got. There it is, the filing from Churchill Capital Corp. You could look at the SEC filing, and then you could go in here. So maybe it'd be worth it to look at that over in, let's actually look in Prophecy, CCCX, and I'll pull up the insider trading, and let's see how that looks. We got Citadel has been buying some more in October, and more buyers than sellers from an institutional perspective. You do see Citadel buying. Okay, insiders as well looks fairly bare, but you're seeing some buys. When it comes to their current financials, again, you'd anticipate more revenue. So with that being said, the growth potential could be there. Where would they price in? You're probably looking at, with the hype of quantum, maybe a $2 billion to $4 billion market cap. That would put them with some of the other companies, or at least near the conversation of Rigetti or of QBTS or others. But ultimately, we don't know, and I wouldn't even speculate it. I wouldn't even speculate it until we see more formulation of this. We see the SEC filing here happening. where we're having a business combinations taking place here. And then here we are. Let's see how it plays out into this next year, as things look pretty good. But that's why I got them here. Number one, previous highs would be up to about $27 a share from a technical perspective. That's really all you can go off of. You got up to about 50% return if they hit those levels. If this fully materializes and quantum value continues to build and institutions continue to be attracted, then we would see this company probably be a lot higher than that price point. But that's how it looks now, about a 40% increase potential. So there you are. Number one is that one. That's the one I'm watching. Going to be watching closer. The next one, Rigetti stock. So Rigetti is a company we started covering here at $1 a share. And it's the most innovative local company to NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is right there in Santa Rosa, near San Francisco. And then you have, so they're in Silicon Valley. And then you have Rigetti is actually right there in Berkeley. And so if there was a company that was going to get bought out by NVIDIA or continue to develop at a faster pace than others, this company would be on that list. Rigetti stock has gone from $1 a share to as high as $58 a share. We've been able to have tremendous returns last year, but ultimately they're back down to this 200-day moving average. So a lot of times you can look more technical when a company's been more established. On the chart side of things, they're down to that previous resistance that they established back in January of last year, around $21 a share. They bounced there. They bounced basically this 200-day moving average, which they oftentimes would stay above in a bullish market. However, in the nearer term, you can see them kind of holding below this EMA, this 20-day moving average. The EMA here, they're holding below. We'd like to see them break above this EMA. That would be bullish for them to continue. In fact, a good way to do that would be to just look at the Fibonacci. When you look at the Fibonacci retracements, you go from the top, their peak, recent peak, all the way down to their nearest low, which you see right around $20. And then you're going to stretch out to where you'd believe they would be making their run back up into. I would imagine they're going to get it back up into this $35 to $40 range, somewhere in here. Okay, so that would be kind of like this, continuing the trend. All right, it's about a 78% gain. But according to this, waiting for confirmation would be waiting for a break above this $25 to $27 price point into this green level, or this 0.618, according to Fibonacci. You do see a couple things to watch closely. Again, they're holding below that EMA. They're at a support level around 21, and we'd like to see them hold above. Nearest bullish target for the company is up here to this level at about $29 a share. That would be a 20% increase to those levels. And you could see that support level holding right below around that $21 range. So for Rigetti, they're holding between these levels, maybe even selling back down as low as 22, as you could see. And we're looking for them to make it back up into this $30 range. That's the consolidation that we're seeing right now, kind of between left and right. They might even, again, sell back down here. You can see this kind of support down here and resistance since November. And we're looking for them to continue. But again, strong previous resistance, which oftentimes acts as a support from back here in January. Oh, I can't really go back too well. But in January, when they peaked out, that was their previous resistance. And you could see that acting as a support here as they are continuing to hold above $21 a share. So Rigetti is working with top companies. They're at Microsoft. You could see them here in the quantum computer Anka 3 simulators. They have the other companies they're partnered with, like QBTS and others, where they're building out the cloud access. And the cloud access and the online documentation, primarily the documentation, is what has allowed us to integrate into our cloud with the Prophecy app to get AI analysis. So when we use the AI for analysis, and then we use it for the quantum, that's what we do. We've actually integrated with Rigetti to look at all of the time frames here that are projected over the next up to next year, and then give us, according to the quantum computer, so literally analyzing Rigetti stock with Rigetti stock, is saying that the next week is the most confident projection, and that's going to be a 69% confidence there, and a bearish projection that it's going to sell back down to that $23 price point. And that was kind of actually what we were just talking about. So again, the $23 price point would be that you can see they got rejected at this previous resistance here around 27, 26, and now they're selling back down. So anticipating maybe that $23 sell down here down to this level before kind of bouncing and continuing back up, or maybe breaking out. That seems to be the current projection that we were just doing, and the AI would agree. When we look at the nearest contracts, they've signed very large contracts in the last few months from a impact perspective, but not really from a revenue perspective. And we can get into the financials. I'd actually really like to do that. But I also just want to show you as well, we have this new widget in the support and resistance in the Prophecy app where you can actually see the nearest support level. So you can see those support levels and the nearest resistance levels as well, and where those are at according to the AI. Really cool stuff. And yeah, so again, kind of projecting a little bit of red here and down to the support level into the next day or so, but bullish on the company into the next year and 6 months, as you can see, up to the $30 plus price point. So why is that? Well, when you look at their news, they recently integrated some new technologies, including the what seems to be a shadow agreement. It's not really public, but they're working with Microsoft in the cloud and everything else, that it looks like Microsoft's Majorana chip would fit perfectly in the Rigetti chip. Okay, so right around here, looks like the QPU in that computer would be great. Quantum computing are said to be one of the ways that AI will continue to scale into 2026, or at least into 2030. The qubit gates, single qubit gates and 2 qubit gates, have this thing called fidelity. Fidelity is going to be the ability for them to have accuracy, the ability for them to work towards things like error correction and be able to have sustainability in the quantum calculations. And if they're using them, like picture it this way, you have a garden, okay? You got like 100 tomato plants. If you have 100 tomato plants, and then you have a garden here, and then you also have a garden over here, and you got 5 tomato plants. In the 100 tomato plant garden, what if, every tomato plant only does 1 tomato? Then that's going to be just 100 tomatoes. But over here in your 20 tomato plants garden, or 5 tomato plant garden, you did 25 tomatoes per plant. So that means you did more with the smaller garden than with the huge garden. And so basically, think of each tomato plant, as a qubit, and the fidelity is the effectiveness in the qubits and their ability to use them for large scale computations and small scale computations. And so essentially, as they get better at increasing the fidelity here and optimizing, they're able to then scale to more qubits. And currently their target is 100 qubits, and they've actually increased quite rapidly in the last year. And we've seen them grow this number quite a lot. And so they're partnered with NASA, MIT, they're working with AWS, Microsoft, and others. And then some of their recent developments in their technology has opened up the door for more commercialization potentially, but also the purchase of their systems from other research centers. So while we look at them and we kind of look at the news and you want to get excited, you look at the articles, they have the NVQLink announcement, but they haven't really had a lot of massive deals. They've had a $5.8 million contract with Air Force in September, the $5.7 million deal shortly after, or a purchase of one of their computers, and they've had some other smaller deals here and there. But when you look at the financials of Rigetti, and you look at where they're at currently, it doesn't really indicate that they are where they should be for their current market cap. So negative net income of $200 million is what they lost in their last quarter. They only made about $2 million. The revenue was terrible, right? $2 million in a quarter. And the balance sheet was at $630 million, which technically on their current financials, if they don't raise more money, they might be at a point where they don't have cash in like 3 quarters. A few quarters ago, we were saying, oh, look, they've got $600 million in equity and they only have a revenue of $2 million and they lost $40 million. But that's fine because they got $600 million in equity. And that's totally fine because, they could lose $30 million a quarter for years. But then they come in with this last quarter, they lost here $200 million. And it's like, okay, that's a lot more. And so at this point, the financials look fine. They don't look alarming because they have much more assets, but they definitely need a ton of improvement. And their current market cap of $8 billion is trading on the future. And so when we look at these levels, that's why I'm more conservative. I say, yeah, I could definitely sell down first into these levels. And, we anticipate they hold above the 200-day moving average. But even if they didn't, all these companies have a long-term horizon. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be IonQ. IonQ stock is the company that most people probably think of as the major pure play, and they have the same chart. So I'm going to save us some time here. You can see the chart's the same. Holding above the 200-day moving average, it looks the same. When you're looking at the growth potential for them to get up into that $80 range once again, the conversation is similar to what we just had on Rigetti. So we can also pull up the Prophecy app and let's search up IonQ. This support level there is holding. They're at a resistance now at $51, looking to break above. Next bullish target would be up into that $65, that previous support level around there. And they focus on trapped ion qubit technology. So this is the Air Force Research Laboratory main person they're looking at or main company they're using for quantum. Amazon Bracket, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. Those are some of their customers. And their partners include many different companies in defense, and you got DARPA. They're working in space as well, and they work with NASA and some others. And you got the only full stack quantum platform. So they've been having a really focused approach on building infrastructure by building their quantum networks. And they also, one of the companies is Amgen, which is one of the largest drug discovery companies. I learned about them at an IonQ conference that I went to, and the quantum accelerated drug development is a big thing. So taking millions and millions of data points, and for a vaccine or something, there's going to be a ton of different solutions for you to find the right cure for something, literally millions. And so rather than having all the trouble going through that, the quantum computers essentially can look at all the possible peptide protein bindings for a certain disease or to find a cure, and then it's used for the drug discovery and usage in the pharmaceutical world. There's also the battery tech. So they work in battery tech related to optimizing battery tech. There was one instance that I heard from them where they had taken 20 years worth of research on batteries, and they basically put it through IonQ and were able to get it down to just 8 options for optimization. They then had their research team go into those 8 options, and 6 months later, they improved the efficiency of the lithium ion battery by 70%. So essentially what they could do is they take, same way that AI becomes very powerful because it has all this data to work with, is the same way that quantum computers specializes in synthesizing and taking all of that data down to specific outcomes that you want. And so when it comes to the integration into AI, the problem is you can use it in tandem with AI, but that's exactly this. You need to use these quantum computers with GPUs, with the other existing technology. That's why you see some of their partners like Dell, NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft, and others, because it's an essential tandem that needs to happen as quantum technology is developed. And the other problem is, while you're, let's say, calculating rather than, so they're really big on the atom, right? The trapped ion. So rather than, let's say, doing just a high level overview of a chemical reaction, what they might do is, they might go down to the molecular level or down to the electrons and how they're moving, right? And so in that instance, electrons move at millions of times a second, super fast. And so the quantum computer may be able to process that and also monitor it, but it also has trouble with the ability to store all of that data. Obviously, it's a massive amount of data. And so you can kind of see where they're working out. There's a lot of benchmarks to consider, but basically what you need to know is they're one of the top quantum companies to be watching, and they're worth more research. And we talk about them quite often. If you guys ever want to integrate them into your investing, but also know how to invest in quantum stocks and more, we're in StockMate. It's the second link below for our daily live trading. We'll be there tomorrow morning at market open. We're there every day, Monday through Friday. We'd love to see you there in the second link below, or get Prophecy app in the first link below with our holiday sale. So next one is going to be QBTS. QBTS is the quantum annealing approach. Now, this is really interesting. This company had a lot more growth than some expected because of their slight discorrelation to the same approaches as other quantum companies. Most quantum companies, they have different approaches. They have a very different approach. It's quantum annealing. They kind of have like their own chips, and they have their own cloud, which on one hand is good because it means they're like building their own infrastructure. On the other hand, it can add more risk because now they might create competition with other companies where they aren't going to collaborate, especially if they're firing shots at each other. So in one instance, QBTS was really fighting to say that they were actually better than NVIDIA GPUs for certain things. And obviously that didn't go well because basically Jensen decided to not really acknowledge the company as being as legitimate as other quantum companies, the NVIDIA. And then not only that, when NVQLink came out with the integration that we were talking about with the companies for data centers and GPU integration, D-Wave was not on the list. D-Wave was nowhere to be found. So this company is a company that's been around for quite some time, and they're innovating in a lot of ways, but they also have kind of their own infrastructure. And some of the claims that they had actually even got them a few lawsuits this last year, which is interesting about some of the language. But here's the deal. They've been around for a long time. You can see that they got the quantum service, which is AI cloud. We had a little bit of trouble integrating so far in our Prophecy app for Prophecy AI, but it's going good. In that sense, the other thing that's a little bit strange about this one is that a lot of their contracts seem to be repetitive. They're getting cash every year from, for example, NASA and others. But the issue that I've found is that a lot of their big quarters, where they have, let's say, a $15 million quarter, are kind of one-off quarters because ultimately they aren't getting a lot of usage out of their quantum computers. And when I went to the conference, I was even able to meet the CEO here. I really liked how they have an approach on building their own cloud infrastructure, because that seems very valuable for the growth of the company. It's like, if they're going to be highly valuable, then they're going to have their own infrastructure. However, on one hand, there's also the risk that some of their solutions might actually not be necessary through a quantum computer, and that they're early to the game when they're saying like for commercial use, because a lot of their companies that I've seen them partner with, like Ford Otoson, NT Docomo here, and others, maybe I'm just not seeing them update as much. Okay, Ford Otoson deploys the vehicle manufacturing application, but that's been there for like over a year, and we saw the application on the local host of the person that was running it at the conference, and to me it felt off in the sense that the problem that they were solving seemed possible, quite possible to solve on GPUs. And so that was my only like reservation. And so I would like to see, they're tackling, for example, manufacturing. They're tackling, the organization of employee schedules and creating complex employee schedules, or the improved network performance. And these are all good things, but what I'm looking for is the optimization of, cellular energy, or the optimization of, biochemistry, scrubbing CO2 out of the air, or the binding of peptide proteins, or the regeneration of cells in the body. Like, to me, those types of things seem like more promising, and those are the higher level problems that you see with companies like Rigetti and IonQ. With that being said, the financials, while they have a big negative net income of 167 million and then 139 million in consecutive quarters, the total assets are up to almost $1 billion. They got about 670 million in equity, which is fairly good. Market cap's at 10 billion. Is it justified? Maybe. We've seen some of their partnerships they've had with, for example, like Lockheed Martin or MasterCard or Boeing, but they haven't really turned into much, and we haven't seen it show up on the revenue at all, really. They're still only about $3 million a quarter, which is still up. It's still up 100% from last year, but again, it's still pretty small compared to their current $10 billion market cap. It's not that they haven't improved. When they're competing against themselves, they're doing great. But when they're competing against where their valuation is at with the market, they're way overvalued in that sense. But we see them continue to run. Do they continue to run up to $47 a share again? Possibly. I would anticipate more of a sell down, potentially down into this range, around $20 a share to that 200-day moving average. Be more conservative, but I think could be more online with where they're going to be, and that they'll reach those levels. They'll be up into that level. It will just take some more time. Now, maybe they hit it right away, but I think it's going to take some time, as it would make sense and be more healthy for their stock if that was the case. So again, kind of watching that resistance. They're at $28. They're currently at $27.72. And I would expect this sell down here. But in the long term, company looks good. I do hold them long term and will continue to. So the Prophecy app also has some indications. You could see some of the projections here for IonQ. Fairly bullish, actually. Let's see, QBTS, finally. Next month, bearish on QBTS with the support here down to $20 is what it's kind of watching. That's what we're just talking about. So long-term looks good, though. I think over the next year and into the next few years, they look good. Some of the news that has come out, Q-Wave or D-Wave is expected to be worth, much more potentially. This is a price target here. I don't really do Yahoo Finance, but about $15 per share is what they're saying by 2026. That doesn't make sense. I mean, well, I guess that's a bearish outlook. And that's kind of interesting. But, the current projections that we have here over the next month indicating fairly bullish in the next year, but in the short term, it looks fairly bearish. So we'll continue to watch it. We'll see if any opportunities continue to present themselves. And I would love to integrate D-Wave with our app as well. You can see over the next year, though, it's anticipated to get up into about $40 a share. So continuing the trend, but just with some bumps along the way. Actually anticipating the next 3 months to be pretty rocky, but into the next 6 months, more bullish, and into the next year, looking up to that $40 range, a 45% increase. So quantum stocks have gone up hundreds of percentage points the last year. They might correct to start 2026, but overall, over the next 5-10 years, you're probably going to see more growth in this industry. That's why I brought them up. Number 5 is going to be NVIDIA. If you want to look at it, NVIDIA, obviously, we talked about them a lot. IBM is in there. You got Google is in there. IBM reported $1 billion in revenue from quantum. Google just released their new chip, the Google Willow chip, which is integratable with a lot of these quantum companies. The Microsoft Majorana chip, which we talked about, which was very integratable. And so keeping in those companies, obviously, they're big companies, they're doing it, but investing in them won't usually have a direct impact as much from quantum as investing in pure plays. So that's why, I'll mention them. They're there. You can take a look, but that's how it looks currently. So if you guys would like to get more insights like this, drop a comment down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think. And if you want full access to the Prophecy AI and join us for our weekly trainings, you get all the models for the entire year. That includes Gemini, Claude, Grok, GPT Pro, and every new model that we release. And you also get StockMate included as a bonus. That's where we trade live Monday through Friday. So you can see our entries and exits there in real time each day at market open. And I'd love to see you there at our live session tomorrow morning. You can claim everything using the first link below to get $300 off for the holidays. And if you want access to the daily live trading only, that's the second link below. If this helped you, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.